Oh, it's not. No, this is not. Today, I'm gonna make a dozen perfect candles with your help. That way, if they don't turn out perfect, I can blame part of it on you. I'm just kidding, sort of. At least about the perfect part, because today we're actually gonna be making test candles. Test candles to evaluate 6 brand new fragrances from CandleScience. By the way, I've went a couple weeks without a video, which is not normal for me, so thank you all for being patient while I was trying to get some of this new setup done. I am in the warehouse right now. You can't probably even tell, but it's a disaster behind me. The entire warehouse is still a warehouse, except for right behind me. So I've spent the last couple weeks building this out for videos like this, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know in the comments how you think it turned out and if you like it. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the purpose of today's video, which is to test these 6 brand new spring fragrances from CandleScience. Now, I want to start by saying I have no clue whatsoever what these fragrances are. I did not order them. They showed up on my door for review and for testing here on the channel. I haven't looked at their website, their new fragrances. I don't even know what they're called. I have no idea. So I'm going to be doing this for the very first time along with you. Well, some of you. Many of you probably already know what the fragrances are, but this is going to be a first for me, and as I open each one, I'm going to let you know what I think, just initially, right out of the bottle, and then we're going to make some test candles with them. So stick around for the whole video because we're going to go one fragrance at a time. I really hope you guys enjoy this. All right, let's set a few of the parameters for these test candles. First and foremost, the wax that we're going to be using is a 52-48% soy to paraffin blend. It's a very common parasoy. It is a melt point of around 120 to 125 degrees. So this wax, think of your ProBlend 600, Joy Wax, MB100, I think is what it's called, or M100. So that's the wax we're going to be using today. It's a great overall wax, and it gives really, really good results when it comes to forming an evaluation of a fragrance because it's got good solid hot throw, good solid cold throw. It's just a very well balanced wax, and it's very easy to use as well. So we're going to be using that wax for this test, as I do for most tests. We're also going to be using 2 different jars. I'm going to be using 9-ounce straight-sided jars. You can find them from places like CandleScience, Flaming Candle, Aztecs, SKS, Bottling, Fillmore Container. Really, pretty much almost every supplier sells that jar. They make 7-ounce candles, but they are called a 9-ounce straight-sided jar, or at CandleScience website, the medium straight-sided jar. Now, we're also going to be using a 13.5-ounce double wick vessel. Now, I double wick them. You can single wick them if you want. It depends on the wax you're using and so on, but for me, we're going to be double wicking these. These are around 3.5 to 4-inch diameter jars. The specific ones we're using today are these gray ones behind me, and they are from Ambrosina Vessel Company, but the Aura vessels at Makesy are the same size, style, shape, diameter, and all of that. So if you want to test any of these candles and fragrances for yourself in the future, those are the jars we're going to be using. I like to test both a single wick and a double wick just because you can get a better idea of the overall fragrance and hot throw by mixing it up a little bit, having a little bit of variety. I like to use a 9% fragrance load for testing because I think it's not too much, it's not too little, and I find with most fragrances that does pretty well. And then if I decide later on to actually use these fragrances on a larger scale, then I will adjust that fragrance load if I think it needs to be. And the last thing I need to point out is the wicks that we're going to be using. This may come as no shock to most of you, but we're going to be using Premier 700 series wicks. These are wicks that I use on almost all of my products, and as many of you also know, I recently became a distributor for those wicks as well. So I prefer these wicks over all other wicks, at least in the waxes and the applications that I use them. And if you are interested in trying those wicks, I do have them up on the website. But for these particular tests, in the smaller jars, we're going to be using a Premier 735 wick on all the scents. That is a really good starting point for a size for this wax and that jar with most fragrances. There are heavy or cinnamon fragrances that occasionally need a larger wick, and then there are some fragrances that are lighter and can use a smaller wick. But that's a good starting point, at least for the purposes of evaluating these test candles. And then for the double wick candles, there is a range there that work as well. I have some fragrances that can use as low as a 710 or 715, up to even a 730, 735 for some heavier, harder to burn fragrances. I'm going to be using 2 Premier 720s in each of these jars, and then that is kind of my baseline. And then again, if I plan to do these long term, then I will do some further testing and then tweak that size if needed. But for the purpose of the test, we need to keep it as simple as possible. I'm excited to go ahead and grab this first fragrance. I, again, have no idea what it is, so this should be fun. I've got the 6 fragrances back behind me on the shelf with the labels facing out. I did my best to reach in the box and kind of feel the label and then put them away from me so that way I still haven't seen anything. So I'm gonna grab the first one without looking and we're gonna get started. Still haven't seen this label. Now, the thing is us humans can be simple-minded, right? We can be influenced by suggestions. So that's the reason when I'm evaluating something for the first time, I don't want my opinion to be led astray. I don't want my opinion to be influenced by other information. For example, if I know the name of this fragrance, I already expect what I'm going to smell. And so I don't want to do that. I want to be surprised. I want to give you my real initial thought. And once I smell it, I will look at the label and let you see it as well. And we'll go from there. All right. Fragrance number 1. This smells exactly like a tropical blend smoothie. There is a smoothie that I like to get all the time. There's actually one up at Quick Trip. That's the local gas station chain near me. But your Hy-Vees, Price Choppers, all those sell this in the health section as well. I smell some guava. At least that's what it smells like to me. Maybe a little bit of pineapple, mango, that whole tropical vibe. It's actually really, really good. This smells the most realistic to that entire tropical blend or medley than some others. Many others are very specific, like pineapple or peach or mango. This one definitely has a really good combination of all those. It's actually almost like, you kind of want to eat it, but you can't. Like that a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at the name. It is Passion Fruit Pineapple. So I think we did a pretty good, I don't know that I would have necessarily said pineapple specifically in there. Passion fruit, guava, tropical medley, something like that, but there is definitely pineapple and I love it. I like the fruit, I like tropical. This is right up my alley. It's also very strong. This one out of the bottle is quite strong, so I have good hope for this one. And yeah, looking forward. So we're gonna start with testing this one right now. Go ahead and make the first candles. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to be starting with Premier 735s for this single wicked candle. And I'm gonna be using this amazing wick setter and wick clips from Norden Candle Supply. You guys have seen me talk about them before in other videos. They are also now a sponsor of this channel, which is awesome because I use their products all the time. You can see they set the wicks perfectly, and then they also have these perfect wick clips that fit nicely as well. But we'll add that here in just a second. We're gonna take our double wick jar, and in this case, we're also going to be using this double wick tool from Norden Candle Supply. You just feed these through the bottom, like so. Lock the wicks in place. Easy peasy. Banana, pineapple, freezy. I almost forgot to get gloves. That's gonna be a mess because I am going to add some color. I like color, so I'm gonna use some color while we do this test. Plus it helps to differentiate between the different test candles. Now we're getting down to business. So we got to pick out a color, and that's where we need to experiment a little bit. We're using CandleScience fragrances, so we're going to use some CandleScience Eco Dyes as well. And the fragrance is Passion Fruit Pineapple. So I'm thinking sort of a pinkish, like not a red or even a magenta, but more kind of like a toned down pinkish, peachish color, maybe with a little bit of purple or burgundy. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm thinking like a drop of burgundy, a drop of purple, and a drop of yellow. I have no idea what that's gonna make. Probably brown, but we're gonna try it anyways. All right, it's time to get the wax. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, but we're gonna be using 16 ounces of wax. That should give us a pretty good fill amount on each of these candles. You don't have to fill them up as far. I just want to do more of a full test, so they're gonna be mostly pretty full. 16 ounces of wax, which is also roughly 453 grams of wax if you use that unit. And then for fragrance amount, I set a roughly 9%. And then 9% of that for fragrance oil is roughly 1.5 ounces of fragrance or 42 grams of fragrance. So we're gonna get the color in first. Now I would typically use a probe thermometer, but for testing purposes, using an infrared thermometer like this works totally fine. Actually, it works fine in general. The key is to make sure you're stirring while you are reading the temperature because it measures surface temperature. So as long as you're stirring the wax, you'll get a good reading. So we're gonna go ahead and get our splash of color. So we're gonna do 1 burgundy, 1 purple. We're actually gonna see what that looks like first. I like to use these little paper plates to get an idea of the color. So that's a little too purple. So I think we actually need to get another burgundy in here. Probably shouldn't have added any purple at all. getting closer. And I think we need to get this more pinkish, so we're going to add a little bit of red, 2 drops of red. And this is what I do when I'm testing. I'm not just testing for fragrance or wicking. I like to test for color as well. And this is the time to experiment. Not bad, not bad. And I am going to go ahead and add 2 drops of yellow, like I mentioned before. I don't know. Kind of got that brown color we were talking about, but that's all right. Now we're going to add our 1.5 ounces of fragrance. I'm using a very small bottle, and so I'm going to use a small little Dixie cup that I've got on hand. We're going to do oops, I need to change the unit here. We're going to use grams for this. We're going to do 42 grams. Let me get this added right here. Now while I'm stirring this, I want to talk real quick about stirring. It can be very enticing to want to stir very, very fast. We really want to get that fragrance oil mixed in, so we stir aggressively. But the thing is it really doesn't need that. You want to go nice and slow, steady, good blend, good mixture, but without going too fast. The problem with stirring too quickly is that you can introduce air bubbles, even ones that you don't necessarily see, like micro bubbles. And the problem with that is once your candle cools, those bubbles can be trapped. And at the very least, it can just cause some aesthetic issues, some surface issues. You might see little bubbles, or on the side of your jar, you might see tiny little specks, which are actually little micro bubbles as well. But worst case scenario, they can actually be trapped and cause little air pockets and sinkholes, which can affect the way your candle burns. So the key is going really slow, nice and steady, slowly, slowly, slowly. Maybe not that slow. I know it can be tough. You're going to want to stir faster, but nice and easy. Easy does it. So not really the color I was going for, but it will work. As you can see, this is more of a great kind of cranberry color, which I'm not mad about. And that's about the fill level that I wanted. It's not quite full on either one, but it's definitely going to be good for testing purposes. For testing, I'm not going to be all crazy and get every little bit of this out of here and worry so much about getting this spotless. We're just going to keep testing here. Paper towels, a little bit of rubbing alcohol if you really want to get serious about it, but for testing purposes like this, just do your best you can to get most of it out. Now we're going to get those wick clips on, which they just sit right on top. They're made for the jar, so they fit perfectly. And then you just press them right in there, and you got a perfectly centered wick setter. Same on the other one, slide it on, and there you have it. They smell great, by the way, like really, really good. Now we could get on the CandleScience website and read through their description of these fragrances and everything they tell you, but you can do that on your own time whenever you want. So I'm going to let you know my feedback. We're going to make these testers. I'm going to talk about them from my perspective, and then if you want to do some further research after that, of course you certainly can. But let's go ahead and move on to the next fragrance. I think this is from the back, and once again, total blind sniff test. Let's see what we got. Oh, God, no. Woo! Nope, no ma'am, no ma'am. I don't like that. Don't like that one. It was so pungent, I'm gonna have to smell it again so I can give some kind of description. But I can tell you I wasn't a fan. Was not a fan. Here we go. Granted, out of the bottle, it's always much more pungent and potent and in your face, really can knock you out, right? But, it's not, no, this is not, I don't even know how to describe it. It's got some kind of herbal, it's got something herbal to it. That's obvious, but I hope it's just the concentration in the bottle. I'm sure this will get better once we blend it with some wax, but it is overpowering. Some kind of herbal medicine or herbal cough drop or herbal tea maybe, but it is really, really strong out of the bottle, and it's not a fragrance that I'm a fan of, I gotta say. All right, I gotta see what it is. Chamomile tea. You kidding me? Chamomile tea. Definitely not one of my favorites out of the bottle. Once we get blending it with the wax, we'll see. I might change my mind, and I certainly might change my mind when we start testing and actually burning the candle, but I can't even do that one more time. Really curious, anyone else who's tested this fragrance, what your initial thought was out of the bottle. Did it damn near knock you over too? Or is it just me being too sensitive? I don't know. So for color, I don't think we have much of a choice here than to go with some kind of light brown, right? It's a tea, very, very light herbal looking tea color. We've got our 16 ounces wax. We're gonna go with a golden honey. See how that turns out. We're just gonna go with, let's try 1 drop first. Ooh, this is a really thick dye. That's interesting. That's a pretty close. It's a little bit more yellow than I wanted, so we're gonna go with 1 brown as well. So we've got 1 brown and 1 golden honey. Let's do 1 more brown. I want that a little darker. All right, that'll work. So we got our kind of light brown, tea brown color. And let's go ahead and add our fragrance. So by the way, we're at about 155 degrees for our wax at the moment. We're gonna add our fragrance in. And well, let me go ahead and get this in first, and then we'll talk about temperature a little bit. So 42 grams. All right, so while I'm stirring this, I want to talk about temperature a little bit. With most waxes, to be perfectly honest, there's a pretty good wide range temperature that you can work with as far as adding your fragrance oil to your wax. I know many new makers get fixated on very specific degrees of what temperature they need to add their fragrance oil to their wax, and it's going to differ a lot on the specific wax you're using as well. But the truth is, I've never really noticed much of an impact to hot throw based on the temperature that I'm adding my fragrance oil. Now, there are waxes that you can't add it too low because it starts to firm up already on you. And then of course you don't want to add it hotter than you need to necessarily, but the range is pretty wide. And I just want to offer some words of encouragement and to ease your stress and concern about this, that you really, there really is some flexibility. There are some waxes that will cool much quicker, and so you want to get your fragrance in a little bit hotter because you have less time to work with. And then they're always soft. They've got a low melt point, so they take a long time to really firm up. So you really have a lot more time to work in your fragrance oil, stir slowly, you got plenty of time. The key is just to work around the temperature that you're gonna pour your candles in. That's much more important because different waxes will firm up at different temperatures. You want to be able to make sure you can pour your wax well into your jars. You don't want to pour too hot in many cases. You don't want to pour too cool in many cases, of course, and it's going to differ on your wax. Some waxes need to operate at much higher temperatures. Others can be done at much lower temperatures. This one is kind of in the middle. With this particular wax, I can really add my fragrance oil anywhere from 145 up to 185 and pour anywhere from 135 up to 155, 160, really anywhere in that range works fine. It's going to differ for everyone, which is the other reason I don't like to give super specific points and temperatures, because it will depend on your environment. How cold is it where you're working? How hot is it where you're working? Is there humidity? What size jars? What size of batch are you working with? And so all of that comes into play. So really find a range that works well for you through testing and do you. That's what's going to work for you. Today we're working in pretty small batches, so I'm going to add a little bit higher temperature than I normally would probably and try to work a little bit faster, because working in a smaller amount, it will cool a little bit quicker. Speaking of which, it's probably time to go ahead and pour these. Yeah, that's a great looking tea color, I think. Very good. So where we failed a little bit on the last one, I think we did a good job on this one, as far as color goes. All right, so far, being mixed with wax here, I'm still not a big fan of the fragrance myself. I'd be curious what others of you who've smelled it think of it, but definitely not one of my favorites. It is still quite strong. The entire wax is liquefied. You're getting basically essentially the greatest hot throw you can have at the moment. So it might be just that it needs to be toned down a little bit. Based off of my experience so far, this isn't something that I would use, at least by itself. Maybe mix it with something, but it's just not my cup of tea. Yeah, I said it. All right, let's get our wick clips on. All right, here we go with our third fragrance. Now, we're going to be moving through these a little bit quicker. Yeah, this is good. Nice, neutral, definitely a floral. If you like florals, you'll like this one. If you don't like florals, you won't. Well, that was a riveting statement. It smells a little bit like calla lily. That's an impossible word to say. Calla lily. That CandleScience also sells. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, I do like this fragrance. I am partial to florals. I've always liked them. I don't want them to be very powdery or too much in your face, but these good staple florals I really do enjoy. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to differentiate or discern this between some of the other similar florals like the calla lily, but it is enjoyable. I don't think there's anything overly unique about this, but it is still really good. So if you're looking for a good floral and you don't already have one, then give it a shot. All right, let's see what it is. Lily of the Valley. So that's probably why it smelled very similar to me, to the calla lily. You know, without looking at the specific note profile, I don't know how similar they are, but it does smell quite similar to me. And like I said, I really do enjoy this. So we are gonna actually go with a pinkish purple on this one too. We already have kind of this burgundy one that we kind of screwed up the color on. Let's go with a light purple. Let's go with a light purple. What do you say? All right, we're gonna get our one purple in. And I think that's all we're gonna use. One purple, nice light purple. Now again, we're using basically 1 pound of wax here. So this would be essentially 1 drop of purple per pound of wax. And I like it. We're just gonna leave it a very light purple. And while I'm getting this stirred, I just wanna say thank you to CandleScience for sending me these as a little bit of a surprise for their new fragrances. I'm always willing to check out some other fragrances, not just for me, but also for every one of you here that are part of this channel. So I did actually have a few people already reach out and ask if I had a chance to smell these and test these yet, and I said no. And then I said, please don't tell me anything about them yet, because I want it to be a surprise. But I know I'm not the only one that's testing these, so I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get this poured, this Lily of the Valley. But yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to thank CandleScience for sending me these. Yeah, that's a really nice purple. Like it. I like it a lot. All right, next fragrance. Familiar. This one smells a little familiar. It's got a woodsy undertone for sure, but something sweet along with it. This sort of reminds me of French vanilla and oak, which is not a CandleScience fragrance. I think it's from Nature's Garden or something, but that's what it reminds me of right out of the bottle. And the only reason that even comes to mind is I just was sorting fragrances and I hadn't used that one in a while, so I opened it up and that's what it smells like. And coincidentally, so does this one, a little bit, but this one's got a little bit of more woodsy, maybe even a little perfumey and something a little sweet. I don't know what the sweet is. It's kind of strange because normally I would think something sweet with this would be like a vanilla, right? But I don't know if it's the combination of that mixed with the woodsy, but I'm almost smelling sort of almost something kind of fruity, almost like a fruit tree a little bit. But the more I smell this, the more I actually like it. The woodsy note, whatever it is, then well, now I'm going to smell it forever because it's on the end of my nose. That's what happens when you have a nose like I do. The note that I'm picking up that it is woodsy has a really, really true wood smell. That's interesting. All right, let's see what we got here. White oak and vanilla. I actually think that makes a lot of sense, especially the oak. That's exactly what it smells like, with a little bit of sweetness to soften the woodsy notes a little bit. But that oak fragrance, that part of the fragrance is very, very accurate. It smells exactly like cut oak wood, maybe sawdust a little bit. I like this one a lot. I didn't really care for it so much like right off the bat, but the more I'm smelling it, the more I like it. This would go really well with one of my collections, my hideaway collection. Pretty good, pretty good. Let's go ahead and make the candle. Oh, but first, color, white oak and vanilla. I think we just need to go with an ivory, right? Just like a super light brown cream color. That sounds good. I don't know, something like something kind of like that, right? Okay, I've got one here called cream. We're gonna try this. We're gonna just go with one. One cream per pound. Let's see what this gives us. Yeah, that'll work. All right, let's get our 42 grams of fragrance. And again, this 42 grams of fragrance to roughly 453 grams of wax is basically a 9% fragrance load. And for everyone that uses ounces, that would be 16 ounces of wax and 1.5 ounces of fragrance. It does have kind of a sophisticated fragrance. I don't really like vanilla fragrances much, and I'm not a huge fan of perfumey fragrances. This has just a touch of perfume, but more woodsy, oak, obviously, with a little bit of sweetness. Everything kind of cancels each other out a little bit and makes it fairly soft, but kind of luxurious. Not too bad. Probably my second favorite so far. It's pretty good. Pretty good color, I think. You know, the thing about color is it's fun, and it's going to be different for everyone. There's so many options. You just have to be creative and let your imagination run. I love using color so much. I really do. It's one of my favorite parts about candle making, and I love the end result. I wouldn't normally put color in these opaque vessels. I would just use natural color, but I'm not going to make two different batches here, one colored, one non-colored, just for two different jars, for the purpose of testing anyways. So yeah, we'll see how they turn out in these gray jars. Number 5, 2 left, including this one. Well, that's an easy one to figure out, at least generally speaking. This is a coffee fragrance. You know, there are some really good coffee fragrances and there's some really bad fragrances, coffee fragrances. This is a good one. I like this. It smells very similar to a coffee shop fragrance that I have right now, which is a little bit on the sweeter side. It's more like a kind of a coffee, cafe latte type fragrance. This one is a little bit more straight coffee. Man, I think I might actually like this one better. You never know with coffee fragrances until they burn, because sometimes they smell entirely different. I've had some that smell just like a coffee shop and you just want to indulge in it. And then I've had others that smell like burnt hair. So this does smell like a true coffee fragrance, but a little sweet too. So I really like this. If you like coffee fragrances, you'll like it a lot. If you don't care to smell coffee all the time, then this is not gonna be your favorite. All right, let's see what it is specifically called. Coffee shop, yeah, so not, I think that's the name of my candle. Coffee shop, coffee house, I can't remember. But I do really like this one. I'm still smelling a little bit of that oak. Hold on, let me get that away. I like this out of the bottle a lot. I think it's obvious we're gonna make this a dark, rich brown color, maybe with a little black in it as well to make it look like a pot of coffee or a cup of coffee. Let's go do it. We're gonna start with 5 drops of brown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's it. Oh, that was close. Almost dropped the dye into the actual pitcher of wax. Pretty good. We're gonna add 2 drops of black because I wanna make this, you know, coffee's not brown, right? It's got a little bit of a different hue to it than just straight brown. I always like to add a little black with the brown when I'm working on coffee fragrances. Now, as you notice, we're using the same amount of fragrance load for every one of these. I do that, generally speaking, when I start testing because I don't know if one fragrance is going to be overpowering or if one's going to be light. So I like to start with the same, and then if I want to adjust it after the first round of testing, I will. Some fragrances I'll go a little higher on the percentage if it's a little light, and many I'll go down. One, maybe because it helps with wicking a little bit, but also if it's just a very strong fragrance oil, then I'll tend to use a little bit less. Things that are very pungent like leather or whiskey or coffee scents, for example, are ones that I'll frequently go down a little bit on the fragrance load. Looks like a good coffee color to me. Looks like a pretty good coffee color to me. All right, and then there was one. Here we go. This gets harder and harder to detect the notes in a fragrance after you've done previous ones. The more we do, the harder it gets. Tell you what it kind of smells like to me. Sort of like strawberry shortcake, but they already have a strawberry shortcake, so that can be it. I smell strawberry. Not overpowering, and more of a kind of a dessert strawberry, not like fresh fruit, not like fresh strawberry, but more of a dessert kind. And then sweet, almost like strawberry cheesecake, strawberry shortcake. This one, along with that passion fruit one, are definitely the sweetest one. Although this is sweet like a dessert sweet, the other one is sweet like a fruit sweet. So they are different. Yeah, I mean, I would have said strawberry shortcake, but they already got that. So I don't know, let's see. Strawberries and cream. Okay, yeah, I definitely get it. And actually now that I hear that and read the word, I definitely now get that. This isn't discernibly different to me than the strawberry shortcake. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like it much better than the chamomile tea one, that's for sure. But other than that, I prefer all the others a little bit better. But part of that is I just don't really like this kind of fragrance. I'm not a big foodie or sweet type fragrance person. I prefer more outdoorsy, woodsy. The only exception to the sweet ones for me are like the tropical and the fruit ones. I do like those, but beyond those, I typically like woodsy, outdoorsy, spicy, even a little bit, musky, even a little bit, earthy. But that's all personal preference. But if you prefer food or sweet type fragrances, you might really enjoy this one. It almost reminds me of when you take like a fresh fruit or strawberry and dip it in that fruit dip, fruit whip, or whatever it's called. That's really what it smells like to me. Or fruit pizza. That's what it smells like. I knew it was something. It was on the tip of my tongue. It smells like a fruit pizza, which when I say it that way, I kind of like it a little bit more because I do like fruit pizza. All right, let's make this candle. This one, we got to go with the pink, a reddish pink. Pretty obvious. We're gonna go with 2 drops of red. Now, many of you that use dyes, you'll know that red really means pink because it is red in the bottle, but the wax, of course, is white usually. It will dilute that red and make it more of a pink color. I actually, well, do I like that or do I want more? I want to go a little darker, I think. Let's go one more. So we're going to go 3 drops of red total. All right, so as I'm blending this last one, I want to again thank CandleScience for sending these fragrances to test out. By the way, this one smells much better, I feel like, once it's been mixed in. It reminds me of a strawberry cake, not even strawberry shortcake, but like an actual strawberry cake, fruit pizza. Yeah, it's kind of grown on me a little bit, anyways, thank you again to CandleScience for sending these. A big shout out to Norden Candle Supply as well for these amazing wick tools and wick clips. I absolutely love their tools. They are fantastic, and I know most of you who have tried them absolutely love them as well. So a big shout out to them as well. I'm gonna get this poured, and then I have a couple other quick things that are important to tell you as well to finish these off. So let's get these poured. Let's see how this color looks. Oh yeah, strawberries and cream. I'd say that's perfect. It'll be a little bit lighter, of course, when it cools, but not too shabby. All right, guys, so that does it as far as the candle pouring goes, but I want to leave you with a couple other important things. First is we're going to be testing these to see how they actually burn, how they perform, the hot throw, and all of that. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit subscribe now below this video and turn on that bell that will turn on notifications. So when I post new videos, you'll get notified. That testing will happen pretty soon. Of course, I need to let these sit for a few days and all of that before I start testing them. But if you want to know the results at all, or just want to see any other videos, be sure to subscribe and I will let you know how these go. Because if you use any of these waxes that I mentioned, M100, MB100, I can't remember the name of that one, Joy Wax, Problin 600, all of those waxes that are pretty similar, 50-50 Parasoys with a low melt point of around 120 to 125. This wicking should be really close for you. And so if you do use these same materials, it would be a good place to start. Again, we used 735 in the smaller jars and 2 720s in the bigger ones. You'll probably need to adjust them a little bit, but it is a good starting point. I also mentioned earlier, I sell these wicks now. So if you want to try them out and you don't already use them, or maybe you do use them and you just need to purchase more, go to my website, blacktiebarn.com. 4 makers, you'll see the wicks listed there. If you use a different wax, obviously these could be way off. You might need a totally different wick size, but I hope this gives you a starting point and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about the new setup here, this new backdrop. I'm really curious. I spent a lot of time on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a little weird for me to maneuver around. This is the first time I've used it, let alone done a video. And so I've got cameras and things staged all over trying to take some good footage here. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed it. One last time, thank you to CandleScience for sending the fragrances. Thank you to Norden Candle Supply for being a sponsor of the channel. And thank you all for being here as always. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks.